They awoke in the hush before dawn, the world still wrapped in pale silence. John lay in bed, half propped on an elbow, watching Margaery's steady breathing and the gentle curve of her waist beneath the linen sheet. Though the lamps had been doused hours before, the faint glow of early morning filtered in through the glass windows of their bedchamber in the Red Keep. The city had never truly slept. Orchard watchers patrolled the streets, and carts laden with produce came and went at all hours. But in this chamber, for these few moments, John felt the closest thing to peace he had ever known. He lowered his gaze to Margaery's abdomen, where her nightgown stretched just a little tighter than before. She was nearly 4 months along and showing signs of pregnancy. Twins, the maester had said with subdued excitement. It brought a flood of emotions to them both. For all the battles fought and treaties signed to maintain the Orchard Vow's promise, nothing reminded John more of life's fragile miracle than the new presence forming inside her. Each day, he found himself placing his palm gently on Margaery's belly, feeling the faint stirrings. She welcomed it, sometimes covering his hand with hers, their eyes meeting in a soft, unspoken bond. She stirred now, lashes fluttering open. A faint smile curved her lips at the sight of him leaning over her. For a few breaths, she let her gaze traverse his features. Older than when they had first wed, silver strands creeping into his dark hair. Yet he still carried that calm resolve that once helped topple Joffrey, forging a confederation of orchard watchers across a realm once thought doomed to monarchy's sway. She reached out, tracing her fingertips across his cheek. "Trouble sleeping?" she asked in a low whisper, mindful that the corridor outside might carry sound if she spoke too loudly. He gave a tiny shrug. "I'm fine, just thinking. The Orchard Vow stands strong. The city thrives. But I keep having the sense that something else lurks beyond our sight. Maybe I'm too used to watchfulness." Margaery moved to a half-sitting position, propping pillows behind her, adjusting for comfort. She was used to sleeping lightly these days, often awakened by twinges of her growing body or by the realm's constant demands. Yet she savored each morning with John, grateful they no longer lived in the frantic aftermath of dethroning Joffrey. Still, the Orchard Vow required vigilance. "You might be right," she murmured. But the southwestern fiasco ended months ago. Aerion Targaryen's attempt to restore the Iron Throne was foiled, and Orchard watchers locked him in an outpost. "We have no sign of new trouble." John nodded, exhaling. "True. And yet, every time the Orchard Vow has grown comfortable, something else has stirred. We used to think dethroning Joffrey was the final step. Then Tywin tried to consolidate, but we overcame him. Then Aerion tried again. I can't help feeling vigilance is never done." She smiled, placing a reassuring hand on his chest. "Perhaps it's fatherhood that makes you edgy. Besides, we must trust Orchard watchers. They've never been more numerous or better trained." He tucked a stray lock of her hair behind her ear. "You're right. We have the best guardians in place. I should relish these next months, especially with your condition." He let his palm rest on her slightly rounded belly, warmth thrumming through him. She let out a soft sigh. "I think our twins will be orchard babes if the Orchard Vow keeps peace. They'll grow up in a calmer world than we knew. That is all I want." He bent to press a gentle kiss to her forehead. "We'll see to it. Let me check with the Orchard Council this morning, see if there's any new intelligence from the outlying regions. Then I'll meet you in the Solar. The Maester wants to examine you at midday, yes?" She nodded. "Yes, midday. He mentioned potions to ease some discomfort, but I prefer not to rely on them too heavily." John rose, dressed in a simple tunic. He had never grown fond of ornate attire despite living in the Red Keep for years. Margaery remained a moment, resting on pillows, letting her mind drift to the Orchard Vow's daily burdens. Letters from the Vale about reorganizing local councils, Stormland's shipments, Dorne's quiet aloofness, the Westerland's ongoing trade. And beneath it all, the humming knowledge that soon she and John would welcome new life, an expansion of the vow from mere politics into genuine family. The thought brought her a delicate flush of emotion. Soon enough, she rose as well, with the help of a handmaid who brought a warm basin to wash her face. By the time Margaery was dressed in a flowing gown that accommodated her pregnancy, the Red Keep's corridors had fully awakened. Orchard knights in the Orchard Vow's standard green and gray livery strode about, stewards hurried with documents, and the city beyond bustled with daybreak trade. She made her way to a small breakfast room where a simple repast, brown bread, fruit preserves, and tea was laid out. The Orchard Vow prided itself on modesty over extravagance. Margaery sipped tea, scanning a short message from a southwestern orchard outpost reporting stable conditions. She gave a small nod, relieved that no new conspiracies threatened. Then a messenger approached, bowing politely. "My lady, Commander Alline of the Orchard Watch requests a brief audience with you and Lord John. She said it concerns a new matter from the southwestern region, but not urgent. She awaits in the Orchard Council chamber." Margaery thanked him, finishing her tea quickly. Despite the messenger's assurance that it wasn't urgent, the mention of southwestern matters prickled a memory of Aerion Targaryen's fiasco. She eased her way out of the breakfast room, crossing corridors that still bore faint traces of ancient Targaryen architecture. Over the past decades, Orchard Watchers had repurposed these halls, turning them from monarchical monuments into functional spaces for Confederation councils. Portraits of old kings were replaced by practical charts of orchard trade routes and rosters of Orchard Watchers. Few even spared a glance at the dusty iron throne behind draped banners in the old throne room. Entering the Orchard Council chamber, she found Commander Alline conferring quietly with John, who must have arrived just moments before. Alline was a tall woman in her 40s, hair braided tight, her orchard insignia pinned at her shoulder. She had proven instrumental in defeating Aerion Targaryen's forces. Now she oversaw broad swathes of Orchard Watchers in the southwestern approaches. She gave Margaery a respectful bow, then cut right to the point. "My lady, Lord John, good morning. I'll be concise. The southwestern coast remains stable since Aerion's defeat, but we've had peculiar sightings near a coastal cave system not far from Wyvern's Rest. Fishermen claim lights appear at night, strange flickers. At first, Orchard Watchers suspected smugglers, but the Watchers who investigated found signs of something else. They heard uncanny noises, felt tremors in the rock, as if an underground force stirs. Local folk speak of old legends, caverns that run deeper than known tunnels, rumored to house monstrous things. The Watchers returned uneasy, uncertain how to proceed. John narrowed his eyes. Uncanny noises and tremors? Could be natural earthquakes or a trick by leftover rebels. But Orchard Watchers usually can handle smugglers. Why do they hesitate? Alline folded her arms. They say it felt unnatural, as though an undercurrent of heat pulsed. No direct sign of human sabotage. They ventured inside, found odd scorch marks, a faint sulfuric smell. Then they heard a roaring echo from deeper tunnels. The Watchers claim it sounded like no living beast they know. They fled, worried about collapse or some unknown threat. Margaery exchanged a glance with John. The Orchard Vow had mostly handled political or human threats. Natural anomalies were rarer, but the Vow's code demanded action if settlements faced danger. "So is it a real hazard?" she asked. "Could these caves lead to some volcanic vent or a dormant creature? Old tales speak of dragons in Targaryen eras, but the Orchard Vow never found any living dragons. Perhaps it's just superstition." Alline nodded. "Could be superstition, but southwestern Watchers are unnerved. They want guidance. They fear the caves might collapse or release toxic fumes, harming local villages. Also, they wonder if it's a ruse by ex-Targaryen loyalists. If it's real, Orchard Watchers might need to seal the tunnels or investigate thoroughly." John leaned on the edge of the table. "We can't ignore it. If villagers are frightened, Orchard Watchers must quell panic. Sealing the tunnels might suffice, but we should confirm what lurks. I volunteer to go see it. If there's no real monster, we'll know. If there is some threat, Orchard Watchers can handle it. We've faced rebellious armies. A cave system can't be that dire." Margaery frowned, her hand moving instinctively to her belly. "You want to trek into subterranean tunnels? That could be dangerous. You know I trust you, but you're needed here, too, especially now." He stepped closer, his eyes gentle. I won't put myself at risk foolishly, but the orchard vow overcame monarchy because we never turned away from direct challenges. If southwestern watchers are too spooked, I can help. I'll take a strong orchard contingent. We'll be methodical. If it's just tremors and sulfur, we seal the place. If it's smugglers or rebels, orchard watchers know how to handle them. I'll come back swiftly. Margaery pressed her lips together. She disliked the thought of him traveling so far, especially with her pregnancy advanced enough that she sometimes needed him near. Yet she understood orchard watchers needed leadership. The southwestern region had grown restive before, and ignoring rumors wouldn't help. Then at least let me assign you a capable orchard knight to keep you from going too deep. Commander Align, please ensure it's a minimal risk. Align bowed. Of course, my lady. I'll dispatch 20 watchers, skilled in exploration. We also have a local maester who studied subterranean phenomena. He can advise. We suspect natural vents, but we must confirm. Jon gave Margaery a reassuring squeeze of her hand. I'll send word each day by Raven. Soon as we know what's there, we'll handle it. Perhaps it'll be nothing more than a curiosity. She exhaled, nodding with reluctant acceptance. You're sure you must go personally? Another orchard leader. He shook his head softly. I feel it's right. Our watchers might need the vow's direct reassurance, and I trust you to manage the capital in my absence. I'll be swift. She inclined her head, trying to keep her voice steady. Then go with my blessing. But come home before these twins decide to appear. A gentle laugh escaped him, though his gaze held warmth. I promise. Within 2 days, Jon had readied his departure. Margaery busied herself with orchard council tasks, refusing to let worry consume her. She oversaw distribution of orchard produce, responded to letters from Dorne's trade envoys, and gave instructions for any southwestern petitioners to come directly to her in the capital while Jon was away. Each night, she felt the twins' movements inside her, a reminder that life pressed on, unstoppable. She confided in the maester about her concern, but he soothed her, saying stress was normal, the pregnancy healthy so far. Jon, meanwhile, traveled southwest with Commander Elaine's assigned orchard squad. Their journey felt routine at first. Orchard watchers patrolled the roads. The local hamlets recognized the vow, no open hostility. They arrived near Wyvern's Rest after a week, verifying that the port was calm. Reports of any Targaryen loyalists had vanished since Aerian's fiasco. Instead, the watchers told Jon about the rumored lights in the coastal caves, the sulfuric smell, the roars echoing through the rock. Fishermen refused to approach that stretch of shore at night. Something strange had indeed spooked them. Jon wasted no time. He conferred with the local watchers who had ventured inside. They described jagged tunnels descending steeply, an odd warmth in the air, flickers of what seemed like luminous moss or perhaps faint flame glimmering on wet stone. The watchers had retreated quickly, sensing an uncanny presence. No sign of human activity or contraband, just something deeper. Jon nodded, formulating a plan to explore with a carefully equipped team. Torches, rope, a local maester specialized in natural phenomena, plus orchard watchers. When they reached the mouth of the main cavern system, situated near a rocky cove battered by waves, the weather was gray, a stiff wind coming off the sea. Jon peered inside, noticing an immediate shift in air temperature. It was warmer within, almost a subterranean haze. Commander Align, who had accompanied him personally, nodded for the orchard watchers to keep watch at the entrance while a smaller group advanced. They lit torches, tested footing, and ventured in, careful to mark the path so they wouldn't get lost. The passages soon sloped downward, water dripping from the ceiling. Torchlight flickered off slick walls. The maester sniffed the air, muttering about volcanic traces. He pointed out streaks of black rock that might have been formed by intense heat, though the region had never been known for volcanism. As they went deeper, the path forked, the watchers methodically exploring side tunnels. A sense of tension pervaded the group. Now and then, someone thought they heard a distant rumble, but it might have been the ocean outside. Torch smoke curled in the still air, making it slightly hard to breathe. Then they found something more tangible. A wide cavern where the floor dipped into a pool of brackish water. Steam rose from it, the water's surface rippling with unnatural warmth. The maester crouched to test it, wincing at how hot it felt. "This is beyond normal tide action," he said quietly. "Some geothermal vent, perhaps." No wonder folk claimed it was eerie. Jon nodded, stepping gingerly around the pool's perimeter. The watchers fanned out, shining torchlight across the rock. The far side of the cavern, near the water's edge, displayed scorch marks as though a great flame had erupted. Something glistened blackly there, reminiscent of molten rock hardened. A sense of alarm prickled at Jon's instincts. Could a dormant volcanic rift exist here? Or was it something else entirely? Just then, a faint roar, like a tremor in the rock, vibrated the cavern floor. The orchard watchers stiffened, gripping weapons. The maester's eyes widened. "That came from below," he hissed. "Not the ocean. Something deeper in the earth." Before they could react further, a rumble passed beneath their feet. Water in the pool sloshed violently, steam hissing up. One orchard watcher stumbled, nearly dropping his torch. Jon grabbed his arm, steadying him. "Pull back," Jon ordered. "If there's an instability, we can't risk a collapse." They retreated quickly from the cavern. A second rumble shook the tunnel, dislodging small rocks. The watchers hurried back the way they had come, but once they reached the entrance, everything calmed. Outside, the sky was no different, the air bracing. No quake was felt above ground. Jon exchanged unsettled looks with Alline. "All right," Alline murmured. "We confirm there's unnatural heat, possible seismic or volcanic activity. The question is whether it poses real danger." The maester frowned, wiping sweat from his brow. Given that pool's heat and those scorch marks, it might be a dormant geothermal vent reactivating. But the watchers said they heard roars. That tremor felt almost alive. He paused, choosing words carefully. "Legends speak of creatures deep in the earth, from old Valyrian myths. But we have no proof. This could be purely geological. Still, we can't dismiss the possibility that something lurks." Jon grimaced, recalling a century of orchard vow triumphs over human threats. Now it seemed nature itself or some monstrous rumor challenged them. "We should return with more equipment to explore deeper tunnels. If we find a volcanic vent, we might seal or mark it. If there's some living threat, we handle that too." Over the next days, they staged repeated expeditions into the cavern system, each time descending a bit further, mapping the routes. They discovered additional pockets of warm water, strange veins of black stone, and occasional ominous rumbles. One orchard watcher claimed he glimpsed a reptilian tail vanish into a dark crevice, but the rest saw nothing. Tensions flared. Some watchers joked that this was a wild goose chase, just random illusions. Others were spooked by the uncanny roars that sometimes echoed. On the fourth expedition, they pushed deeper than ever, finding a large subterranean chamber with bizarre rock formations jutting from the walls. The maester pointed out more black scorch marks, shaped almost like some creature's claw marks. The watchers fanned out, shining torches high. Suddenly, from a dark recess overhead, a guttural roar shattered the stillness. A blast of hot air slammed across them, nearly extinguishing some torches. In that split second, Jon saw something large shift among the shadows, eyes glinting amber in the torchlight. A monstrous silhouette, elongated neck, wings folded close to its flanks. "Down!" he shouted, tackling the nearest orchard watcher as a torrent of heat whooshed overhead. It smelled of sulfur and scorched air. Fire singed the rock behind them, leaving molten droplets dripping. The watchers scrambled. Panicked cries rose. Something huge let out a deafening snarl and scuttled further back into darkness. Jon's mind reeled. A dragon? But the orchard vow believed dragons extinct for centuries, ever since the Targaryens lost the last known ones long before Joffrey's dethronement. Could a solitary dragon have survived in these hidden caverns? Or was it some twisted spawn? None had expected a living dragon. The orchard watchers scrambled to regroup, hearts pounding. One man had dropped his torch in fear. Another had managed to keep hold. The maester crouched behind a rock, eyes wide as saucers. Commander Alline barked orders. Back! Form ranks by the tunnel entrance. They retreated swiftly, trying not to provoke another blast of flame. But the creature roared again, echoing thunderously. Jon glimpsed it shift, wings half spread, indeed a draconic shape. They managed to pull out of the chamber, retreating to the safer corridor. The watchers breathed hard, exchanging incredulous looks. Alline cursed under her breath. The orchard vow was designed to handle armies, not legendary beasts. But the vow required them to neutralize any threat to the realm. If this truly was a living dragon, it could devastate villages, especially if it broke free of the caverns. Jon wiped sweat from his brow. We must confirm. That was no illusion. This changes everything. If it's a lone dragon, we might contain or drive it away, but we can't let it roam free. A single adult dragon could wreak untold havoc. The orchard vow is not equipped with scorpion bolts or old Targaryen tactics. We must plan carefully. Alline agreed, face pale. Yes, we seal this chamber if we can. We can't handle open dragon combat in these tunnels. That flame blast nearly roasted us. Next time, it might kill watchers. We also fear that if the dragon tunnels upward or breaks out, southwestern towns are at risk. They withdrew to the surface, trembling with adrenaline. After regrouping in Wyvern's Rest, Jon wrote a rapid Raven dispatch to King's Landing. He explained the incredible discovery. A living dragon in the southwestern caverns, violent and fully able to exhale flame. The orchard watchers were reorganizing to seal the tunnels if possible, but they might need specialized arms. Some watchers recalled ancient contraptions like scorpions or ballista bolts rumored to bring down dragons in older eras. The orchard vow had no large supply of such weapons, never imagining a dragon's return. The news sent shockwaves through the Orchard Council in the capital. Margaery, heavily pregnant, nearly dropped the parchment when it was read aloud. The Orchard Vow's leadership scrambled. They had repelled monarchy for a century, but a dragon was a different matter altogether. The Orchard Watchers had never fought such a beast. Margaery's hands trembled as she read Jon's letter. On top of everything, he was in the midst of unimaginable danger. She pressed a palm to her belly, feeling a tremor of fear for him and for the realm. Despite her worry, her mind sharpened with the Orchard Vow's discipline. She summoned senior Orchard Watchers to discuss next steps. We must gather scorpion or ballista designs from old archives, she said, her voice carefully steady. We never thought we'd need them, but the Orchard Vow cannot let a dragon run free. She looked to the council. We also need to warn southwestern settlements. Evacuate any villages near those caverns if the dragon emerges. Safeguard farmland. We can't risk letting a single flame annihilate entire orchard fields. The Orchard Watchers bowed, dispersing to set plans in motion. Margaery exhaled, heart pounding. She told herself Jon was resourceful, but the notion of him descending into tunnels with a savage dragon stung her nerves. Could they seal the beast underground? Could they kill it if sealing failed? She prayed quietly for his safety, for the Orchard Vow to stand strong. Meanwhile, Jon and Commander Alline took immediate measures. They deployed Orchard Watchers to ring the cove area, forbidding fishermen from going near. They posted watchers near possible tunnel exits. A party of watchers tried to rig rockfall traps in narrower side passages, aiming to seal the big chamber where the dragon dwelled. If they collapsed enough stone, maybe the creature would remain entombed. But attempts to cause controlled rockfalls risked further tremors, and each foray into the tunnels provoked terrifying roars. The watchers never advanced enough to ensure the dragon was sealed behind rubble. After 2 partial collapses, they retreated, uncertain if it truly blocked the beast's path. In one attempt, watchers triggered a rockslide that partially sealed a side passage, but while they were setting charges of black powder, the dragon unleashed another furious blast of flame, severely wounding 2 watchers. The group barely escaped with the injured men. The Orchard Vow discovered how lethal a cornered dragon could be. They needed new tactics. Within a fortnight, reinforcements from King's Landing arrived, bearing freshly built scorpions, heavy crossbow-like engines mounted on wheeled frames. The Orchard Vow's blacksmiths, rummaging old Targaryen-era schematics, had reproduced them quickly. They also brought steel-tipped bolts large enough to puncture thick hides. But the question remained, how to deploy them inside cramped tunnels. There was no room to maneuver big scorpions underground. Did they lure the dragon out to open ground? That risked letting it scorch half the countryside. Jon and Olenn deliberated. If we block most exits, maybe we can force it out a known path, Jon suggested. Then orchard watchers in the open can aim scorpions from vantage points. The risk is that the dragon might take flight or rampage unpredictably. But we might have no choice. Olenn grimaced. We can't keep watchers in these caverns indefinitely either. It's only a matter of time before the beast grows bolder. I suspect it's rummaging for food, maybe fish from subterranean lakes. If it realizes it's trapped, it might break free anywhere. Let's coordinate a plan to funnel it out a single exit, with watchers waiting outside. They set about carefully blocking lesser tunnels with rock collapses or heavy barricades, focusing on one large mouth that opened onto a rocky clearing near the beach. The orchard watchers spent days hauling stone, rigging beams, braving sporadic blasts of heat from deeper within. They lost 2 watchers to unfortunate accidents, cave-ins triggered by the dragon's roars that shook the rock. Yet they persevered, sealing side passages. Soon, the entire network had but one viable egress, a wide mouth near the surf. The watchers arrayed scorpions across that cove, protected by improvised barricades. Additional orchard watchers stationed on higher ground with bows or crossbows. The plan: they would send a small team inside to provoke the dragon into emerging. Once it came out, the scorpion crews would try to kill or drive it away from settlement areas. It was a risky plan, but Orchard Vow discipline had faced dire straits before. The watchers steeled themselves. Jon insisted on leading the team that would lure the dragon out, though Olenn argued he should remain in command outside. He countered that if orchard watchers saw him share the danger, morale would hold. Reluctantly, Olenn agreed. Their main fear: if the dragon soared skyward once outside, orchard watchers might struggle to pin it down with scorpions. But they hoped the cove's high cliffs would restrict flight. On the appointed morning, a gray sky mirrored the watchers' tense mood. The cove was cleared of civilians. Orchard knights manned the scorpions, each crew assigned to a station. The plan was for Jon's lure team to venture inside, make noise or set small charges to enrage the dragon, then retreat swiftly. The watchers outside would hopefully see the beast emerge, pinned by the cove's rocky walls. Jon stood with half a dozen orchard knights at the cavern entrance, each wearing heat-resistant leathers and carrying large shields. They brought torches, plus a small cask of black powder to create a loud blast if needed. The watchers exchanged uneasy glances, but none wavered. Each had pledged loyalty to the Orchard Vow, understanding that if they let a fire-breathing creature nest in these caverns, southwestern farmland would be at constant risk. They stepped inside, tension coiling in the dank air. Deeper they went, hearing the now familiar roars echo from some unseen chamber. The watchers lit extra torches, brandishing them high. The plan was to approach the lair, toss a black powder charge to incite the dragon, then flee. Each orchard knight felt their pulse drumming in their ears. Yet Orchard Vow training taught them steadiness. They formed a loose line, stepping carefully past fallen rock. The heat intensified as they neared the main cavern. Faint flickers of flame danced on the walls, a sign that the dragon was active. Jon nodded to the orchard knight carrying the black powder cask. That knight set it near a rock, prepped a short fuse. Another orchard knight readied a spark from a torch. They advanced just close enough to see the dragon's bulky silhouette in the gloom. The creature, sensing intrusion, let out a thunderous bellow, and they felt the air vibrate with lethal energy. "Now," Jon hissed. The orchard knight lit the fuse, then the team scrambled back. A heartbeat later, a loud blast shook the chamber, sending smoke and small stones rattling. The dragon roared in fury, flames surging from its maw. Jon glimpsed a scorching torrent sweeping across the walls, igniting cracks in the stone. The Watchers ran, shields raised to block flying debris. Behind them, the dragon launched itself forward, drawn by rage. They could sense its heavy footfalls. The Watchers dashed for the exit, following carefully marked lines. Torches flickered, smoke stung their eyes. The dragon's guttural snarl echoed close behind. One Watcher stumbled, but Jon grabbed his arm, hauling him upright. Heat snapped at their backs. Another blast of flame whooshed overhead, scorching the tunnel roof. But the Watchers pressed on, hearts hammering. At last, they emerged into the broad cove. Daylight, though overcast, felt blinding after the cavern gloom. They sprinted aside, shouting for Orchard Watchers to hold positions. Within moments, the dragon burst from the cave mouth in a rush of wind and scale, a shrieking challenge. It was a fearsome sight, roughly the size of two large warhorses from snout to tail, wings folded close but very real, black scales flecked with bits of molten rock. Its eyes glowed amber with feral intelligence, steam rising from its nostrils. Orchard Watchers scrambled to man the scorpions. The dragon unleashed a furious roar that shook the cliffs. Then it spread its wings, intending to launch upward, but the cove's steep walls constrained it. Scorpion crews aimed, though they had never faced a living dragon. One Orchard Knight bellowed, "Fire!" The first scorpion bolt whizzed out, striking the dragon's flank but glancing off thick scales. Another bolt soared overhead, missing entirely. The creature hissed, tail lashing. It belched flame at the nearest scorpion crew, who ducked behind a rock outcrop. Flames splashed across the stone, scorching the grass. Jon, positioned with Commander Alline behind a barricade, saw Orchard Watchers valiantly reloading scorpions. He signaled another volley. This time, multiple bolts struck the dragon's chest and shoulder. The beast roared in agony, snapping jaws wide. A short column of fire blasted outward, engulfing one Orchard position. Two Watchers died instantly, a third rolling aside with charred armor. The Orchard Vow, though disciplined, faced a savage foe that could kill with a single gout of flame. Even so, Orchard Watchers pressed the attack. More bolts flew, some ricocheting off the dragon's scales, others piercing softer membranes in the wings. The dragon reeled, trying to spread wings for flight. The cove's walls forced it lower, though it managed a partial leap, scattering Watchers. It raked a scorpion with its claws, splintering the frame. Another Orchard squad flanked the beast, loosing crossbow bolts at the exposed flank. The air stank of sulfur and burning flesh. Screams and roars mingled in a horrific chorus. Jon, seeing Orchard Watchers imperiled, grabbed a spear and joined the fray. He knew the vow's principle was that Watchers overcame threats by discipline, not heroics. But in the chaos, additional help might save lives. He led a small group that darted to the dragon's left side while it thrashed at a line of Orchard shields. A scorpion crew found a vantage behind a fallen boulder. They aimed carefully, waiting for the dragon to turn. Once the beast swung its head to belch flame at another scorpion, that crew let their bolt fly. It hammered into the dragon's shoulder, sinking deep. A shriek of pain echoed. The dragon stumbled, flame sputtering. Instantly, Orchard Watchers swarmed with crossbow bolts and spears. Another large bolt struck near the dragon's neck joint. Blood spattered black and hot on the sand. The beast convulsed, tail whipping Watchers aside. Jon narrowly ducked a swipe that would have shattered his ribs. He thrust his spear at an opening, but the creature's scales deflected it. The Orchard Watchers closed in, methodically braving each surge of flame or snapping jaws. The creature, grievously wounded, tried once more to leap for the skies, but the cove's walls and the scorpion barrage pinned it low. Another scorpion bolt lodged in the dragon's hind leg. Roaring in fury and pain, it collapsed partially, wings flailing. Flames died in its throat. Commander Alline signaled the Watchers to press the advantage. More crossbow bolts sank into the neck area. The dragon's final roar reverberated across the cove. Then it slumped, black blood pooling around the bolts. A hush fell, Orchard Watchers stepping back, panting. They had done it, but at a cost. The cove stank of burnt flesh and scorched grass. Several watchers lay dead or severely injured. The watchers who remained stood in grim shock. They had never imagined they would kill a real dragon. The orchard vow had never wanted such a fight, but it was forced upon them. Slowly, the watchers moved among the wounded, offering aid. Jon knelt by two watchers who had been scorched. They groaned in agony, but orchard medics were on hand. Oline approached him, eyes hollow. "We lost men, but we succeeded." Jon nodded, throat tight. "The vow saved southwestern lands from a rampaging beast. Let's see to the dead, treat the wounded." He rose, glancing at the dragon's massive form. "We should burn it thoroughly or bury it. We can't leave a rotting carcass." Oline agreed. Some watchers, trembling with adrenaline, began rigging a pyre. The day wore on as they tended casualties, set the fallen watchers' bodies aside for respectful rites, and used black powder to enlarge a pit for the dragon's remains. By dusk, they lowered the monstrous corpse in, lighting a funeral fire. Smoke coiled into the sky. Orchard watchers bowed heads, mourning those lost. The southwestern coast no longer harbored a dragon. The vow had prevailed again, though at painful cost. Over the following days, orchard watchers scoured the tunnels to ensure no second beast lurked, sealing more passages. They found no sign of eggs or other dragons. The maester surmised the creature might have slumbered in deep caverns for a century or more, awakened by geothermal shifts. The watchers turned to rebuilding scorpions and burying the dead. Jon, battered from close calls, wrote a full report to King's Landing, describing the extraordinary confrontation. When the Raven arrived in the capital, Margaery read Jon's letter with trembling relief. He was alive. Orchard watchers had triumphed, though they lost some to the dragon's fire. She pressed the parchment to her chest, tears blurring her sight. The orchard vows battles never ended. First monarchy, now a dragon from legends. But each time watchers stood unyielding. She resolved to honor the fallen watchers by ensuring the vow endured. On the same day, her body gave a strong contraction-like jolt. She worried the twins might arrive prematurely from stress. But the maester examined her, reassuring that she still had some weeks to go. Not long after, Jon returned to King's Landing, exhausted, carrying the weight of those watchers who would never return. Margaery met him in the courtyard, ignoring protocol as she rushed forward, pressing her swollen belly against him in an embrace. He wrapped his arms around her, face buried in her hair. For a moment, orchard watchers parted discreetly, letting them share their relief. The orchard vow's new generation might gawk at how intimately tied these two were to the vow's heart. "It's done," Jon murmured, voice husky. "No more dragon, though we lost good people." She stroked his hair, tears in her eyes. "You came back, that matters, and we'll honor the fallen. The vow stands." Later, in a private solar, they sat close while Jon recounted each harrowing moment. Margaery listened quietly, her hand resting on her belly, sometimes wincing at the horror. She tried to lighten the mood, eventually by saying, "So you have faced monarchy, Targaryen invasions, and a living dragon. Is there anything left to threaten the orchard vow?" He gave a small, tired laugh. "We must never ask that question aloud, or fate might conjure another horror. But I suspect we've seen the worst. A real dragon is quite enough." She squeezed his hand. "I'm relieved you're safe. The twins and I want you around." She felt a mild twinge in her side, causing her to inhale sharply. He noticed, concern flickering in his gaze, but she waved it off, smiling. "They're just letting me know they're here." The orchard vow's next days were marked by ceremonies honoring watchers killed by the dragon, a testament to their bravery. The southwestern region thanked them, villagers acknowledging orchard watchers as protectors not only from rebellious lords, but from monstrous forces of nature. The vow's archivists recorded the event as the Great Cavern Dragon, ensuring future generations would remember. Some watchers half-joked that monarchy seemed simple compared to fire-breathing WIRMS. But the vow's core principle remained the same. Stand guard over all threats, cruel or monstrous, never yielding to fear. As the moon turned, Margaery reached her 7th month of pregnancy. The city maester insisted she rest more, but orchard duties persisted, letters from Dorne, trade expansions with Essos. Jon tried to shoulder more tasks, letting her stay off her feet. She appreciated his care, though she teased him gently that orchard watchers needed him as well. They balanced each other, the orchard vows synergy in personal form. One morning, after a restless night, Margaery woke feeling sharp pains. The maester examined her, concluding it might be premature labor or strong contractions that signaled twins were on their way sooner than typical. Anxiety fluttered in her chest. The orchard vow had not faced monarchy or dragons, only to lose her or the unborn children to a difficult birth. Yet she steadied herself. "We overcame so much," she murmured to Jon as he knelt by the bedside. "We can handle this." He nodded, trying to hide his fear. Over hours that turned into a long day, the pains grew. The Red Keep staff prepared a birthing room, orchard watchers standing outside with quiet vigilance. The city maester, plus a midwife from the orchard vows medical wing, tended Margaery, ensuring comfort and encouraging calm. Jon hovered near, though they usually asked men to stay aside. She insisted he remain. She needed the anchor of his presence. Each contraction battered her with waves of agony. She clenched his hand, sweat beading on her brow. The midwife coached her breathing. She recalled all their orchard vow crises, but none had felt so physically all-consuming. Another contraction nearly made her cry out, but she bit back a scream, focusing on the orchard vows discipline. Ironically, calm in the face of chaos. She remembered dethroning Joffrey, the southwestern fiasco, the dragon's threat. This was a different battlefield, but she would endure. As evening deepened, the midwife announced the twins were coming. Margaery pressed her face into Jon's shoulder, tears mixing with sweat. He whispered encouragement, stroking her hair. She gave a final push, pain ripping through her. Then, in a rush, the first child emerged. A newborn's thin wail filled the chamber, a sound that cut through Margaery's exhausted haze. The midwife swiftly cleaned the baby, announcing it was a girl. Margaery's heart soared, though she had little time to dwell before more contractions signaled the second twin's arrival. Another wave of effort, another cry from her lips, and the second baby slid into the midwife's hands. Another girl, the midwife declared. The orchard vow had 2 new daughters. Through the haze of exertion, Margaery let out a sob of relief. Jon, trembling, squeezed her hand. The midwife cleaned each baby carefully. They seemed small but robust enough, letting out piping cries. Margaery, tears streaming, reached for them. Her arms shook from fatigue, but she cradled each child in turn, overwhelmed by the miracle. Jon hovered, carefully supporting them. The swirl of euphoria banished the last residue of fear from the day's ordeal. "You see," she whispered to Jon, voice raw with emotion. We have them. Our orchard vow extends." He nodded, cheeks damp. "Yes." He gently pressed his lips to her temple, gazing in awe at the tiny faces. Each baby had a fuzz of dark hair, though it was too soon to say they resembled one par. And more. The midwife checked them swiftly, declaring them healthy. Margaery's postpartum bleeding was moderate, not dire. The city maester arrived, congratulating them with hushed joy. Outside, orchard watchers had prayed for a safe birth. Hearing the news that twins were born, healthy, they let out subdued cheers. Commander Alline, present to assist in any orchard vow crisis, smiled with genuine warmth. Word spread quickly among the staff. Lady Margaery had delivered twin girls. Servants hurried to fetch warm cloths and a special herbal tea. This was a day of new life for the orchard vow's 2 principal figures. In the hours that followed, Margaery dozed intermittently, drained. Jon remained close, letting the midwife instruct him on how to hold each infant. She teased him that orchard watchers might train for everything, but newborn care was a different skill set. He adapted quickly, enthralled by the fragile weight in his arms. The babies often slept, occasionally stirring to emit soft whimpers. Margaery nursed them once her strength returned enough, with the midwife's help. Through the night, the Orchard Vows city routine continued, watchers patrolling by torchlight. But in that quiet bedchamber, the Vows' greatest triumph might have been the safe birth of two innocents who knew nothing of dethroned kings or dragons. This was the Vows' future, a testament that love and gentleness could flourish after so many storms. Margaery, half-dazed from exhaustion, gazed at Jon with wonder. "It's not real," she said faintly. "We overcame so much, and here they are." He leaned to kiss her forehead. "They're real. Our daughters. No monarchy or beast overshadowing them. They grow under Orchard Watcher's guardianship, in a free realm." Tears welled again in her eyes. "Yes, a realm we shaped. Let them thrive in it, with no fear of crowns or flames." By dawn, the entire Red Keep buzzed with discreet celebration. Maids laid out an array of orchard blossoms outside the bedchamber door as a symbol of renewal. Commanders of Orchard Watchers visited quietly to pay respects, leaving small tokens. The Orchard Council declared a holiday in the city, distributing extra fruit to small folk in the squares, letting them share in the joy that the Vows' principal couple had new heirs. Of course, heirs was a monarchic word, but in Orchard Confederation terms, it simply signified lineage. The Orchard Vow had never recognized the need for a dynasty, yet Margaery's and Jon's children symbolized continuity of their ideals. Over the next weeks, Margaery recovered gradually, supported by Jon's patient attention and Orchard Watchers ensuring the city's burdens did not crush them. The Orchard Vow's daily tasks resumed: southwestern farmland rebuilding from the caverns, Stormland's shipping, and Dorne's quiet trade expansions. A handful of watchers from the north arrived to greet the new twins, marveling at how the Orchard Vow's bond of Rose and Wolf had literally produced two new blossoms. They saw it as a sign that the vow would endure for another generation, that monarchy's ghost truly had no place. Margaery named the twins Lyanna and Leora, a blend of northern influence for one and Tyrell resonance for the other. She and Jon welcomed Orchard Watchers to see the babes, who slept often but sometimes blinked at the world with wide, curious eyes. Even at a few weeks old, each child had a distinct temperament. Lyanna fussed more, while Leora was quieter. "They're forging their own vow already?" Margaery teased, exhausted but full of warmth. Jon laughed, gently cradling them both. Amid these domestic joys, however, smaller troubles nipped at the Orchard Vow's edges. A local conflict in the Riverlands flared between two lords over trade tolls. Orchard Watchers had to mediate. A group of Iron Islands reavers tested Orchard Watchers' coastal vigilance. They were chased off. Dorne half-threatened new taxes on orchard caravans crossing their deserts. Each issue might have once felt enormous. Now Orchard Watchers handled them as routine business. After monarchy, dragons, southwestern fiascos, the Vow found these feuds manageable. Yet one day, months later, while Margaery fed the twins in a quiet solar, Jon entered, face set with concern. She glanced up, noticing his guarded expression. "What is it? Another petty conflict?" He exhaled. "Not petty, though not as dire as a dragon. The southwestern watchers found evidence of a second lair deeper in the caves, with eggs. Possibly the dragon we slew was nesting. They discovered 5 scorched shells, though some watchers claim 1 or 2 eggs might remain unaccounted for. We can't be certain if they're viable. The watchers worry about a newborn dragon. Could it survive? That's uncertain. But if any living hatchling roams, we have a smaller threat. Harder to track, but still dangerous." She closed her eyes, heart skipping. "Then we must ensure Orchard Watchers do not let another creature slip away. The southwestern fiasco must not repeat. But how do we search? Those caverns are vast." Jon nodded grimly. "We have Watchers comb each tunnel thoroughly, plus we're expanding collapses in side passages. The worry is that a hatchling might slip through cracks, or be lost in some labyrinth and eventually grow. The Watchers are determined to find every egg or fragment, but it might require months of methodical searching. Meanwhile, southwestern farmland must remain safe." She cradled Lyanna closer, the baby finishing her feeding. "We do what we must. If orchard watchers remain thorough, we'll find any eggs or signs of a hatchling. I just pray no second dragon roams free. Word of possible dragon eggs caused a stir among orchard watchers. Some worried it might lure unscrupulous folk hoping to raise a dragon, or Targaryen loyalists who believed they could harness it. For a century, monarchy had found no foothold, but a surviving dragon might reignite old fantasies. The Orchard Vow took the matter seriously, dispatching an entire specialized detail of watchers with improved gear. The southwestern region braced for extensive cave mapping. Though Margaery longed to help plan, she was absorbed caring for twins, still recovering from childbirth. Jon juggled orchard tasks, confederation councils, and fatherhood. He often took breaks from the council to hold Leora or soothe Lyanna's fussing. It was a more tender challenge than any war, but he cherished these moments. Months trickled by. The southwestern watcher's search uncovered partial eggshells, some obviously smashed or decayed. They found no living hatchling, though a few watchers insisted they saw faint claw prints in damp tunnels. Was it a leftover from the adult dragon, or a smaller creature? The watchers sealed every passage they could. If any living hatchling remained, it had no easy route to the surface. Perhaps it died in the depths. The Orchard Vow concluded that a second dragon might be improbable. They reminded each other that even a single adult dragon's survival was remarkable enough. Another might never fully form. King's Landing slowly let the matter rest. Commander Alline filed official reports stating that orchard watchers had done their utmost. The southwestern region calmed. People returned to orchard-produced shipments, the pressing concerns of daily life overshadowing lingering dragon myths. Margaery and Jon carried on, raising Lyanna and Leora. As the girls neared 1 year old, they babbled words, tiny hands grasping orchard blossoms in the palace gardens. Scenes of new life repeated. Orchard watchers strolling by, smiling at how the Vow's founders had children thriving in this monarchy-free realm. Occasionally, Margaery reflected on how she had once believed dethroning Joffrey would be her hardest ordeal. Yet a dragon had proven even more terrifying. And then motherhood had tested her in a different dimension. All had been surmounted with Orchard Vow discipline. She began to trust the realm's relative stability. The southwestern fiasco truly seemed behind them. Her daughters toddled along orchard paths in the keep's modest greenhouse, giggling as they tried to pick flowers. She and Jon guided them gently, hearts warm. Then, one quiet dusk, a southwestern messenger arrived, breathless and pale. He bore tidings of strange sightings, a rumor of a small winged reptile near a marshy inlet not far from Wyvern's Rest. Locals described it as a scaled worm with wings, about the size of a large dog, breathing small jets of flame. The orchard watchers stationed there apparently glimpsed it at twilight, scurrying across the shore. Some watchers gave chase, but the creature vanished into reeds. The watchers had not launched a full-scale hunt yet, hoping for official guidance. Margaery read the messenger's words, her pulse sinking. So a hatchling did survive. She summoned Jon, passing him the parchment. He scowled, reading swiftly. This means a young dragon roams free. If we let it mature, we face another adult terror. She pressed lips together, hugging Lyanna close as Leora dozed in a bassinet. Then orchard watchers must deal with it at once. There's no time to wait for a bigger threat. But is it alone? Does it have a lair? Jon shook his head, mind racing. Likely alone. But even a small dragon can spook entire villages, if it hunts livestock or starts small fires. We can't muster an entire scorpion army for a dog-sized beast that scampers between marshes. We might need a specialized orchard team skilled in tracking, perhaps with net traps. We have to end this quickly or risk a second southwestern fiasco. Margaery exhaled. You want to go again, don't you? But the girls, we can't both be absent. Let orchard watchers handle this. You can direct from here. He hesitated, torn. You're right. The vow stands beyond individuals. Commander Alline or another can lead. But I feel responsible. That dragon emerged partly because we slew the mother but failed to destroy all eggs. Let me consult with Alline. Then we'll decide. That evening, orchard leadership convened. They agreed to deploy a specialized detachment. Fewer watchers than the scorpion-laden host used to kill the adult, but enough to track a hatchling through marshy terrain. They would carry net launchers, smaller crossbows, traps that might restrain a creature of that size. If the hatchling proved too elusive or started harming settlements, more watchers would come. Meanwhile, the southwestern region was warned, orchard watchers spreading the word that a small fire WIRM roamed. They urged calm, instructing local folk to keep livestock secure at night. Jon took a hands-on approach in planning but ultimately stayed behind in King's Landing, mindful of Margaery's pleas. She needed him near, raising their daughters. The Orchard Vow had many capable leaders. Commander Giles, a seasoned orchard knight, volunteered. He set out with 30 watchers, all skilled in stealth and net use, accompanied by a local southwestern maester who had studied the caverns. Their mission was simple: find the hatchling, capture or kill it. Weeks passed with no firm results. Rumors drifted up. Watchers glimpsed the small dragon thrice. Each time it fled. They discovered scorched remains of sheep, a charred barn, but no direct confrontation. The orchard watchers used net traps, but the creature evaded them. Some watchers found footprints leading back toward the sealed caverns, indicating the hatchling might hide in new tunnels or slip through cracks. Repeated efforts to corner it fell short. Meanwhile, southwestern peasants grew uneasy, remembering the adult dragon's devastation. Margaery felt tension building in the capital. She tried to keep daily tasks smooth, but every raven from Giles brought more of the same. Near misses, sightings of the hatchling at dusk, a small burn incident, watchers stumbling onto half-eaten livestock. The Orchard Vow's discipline was tested by a cunning, fast-moving juvenile dragon. Then, 3 months into the pursuit, watchers reported the hatchling had grown larger, about the size of a pony. It was feeding well, apparently. If it kept growing, orchard watchers might face a miniature version of the adult they once slew. Anxiety spiked. Jon conferred with orchard engineers, considering whether they should reintroduce scorpions to southwestern territory. But scorpions were unwieldy if the creature hid among marshes or emergent tunnels. Some watchers suggested a more direct infiltration again, clearing tunnels thoroughly. Others warned that repeated attempts might end in more watchers burned. Margaery, observing the debate, recognized that the vow had never faced a persistent animal threat this elusive. She ached for a solution that didn't cost orchard watchers' lives. At last, Giles returned to King's Landing in person, frustrated by the hatchling's evasion. He proposed a bold strategy: a specialized orchard unit armed with smaller scorpion-like crossbows mounted on shoulders, combined with net throwers. They would systematically flush the hatchling from each potential hideout. If it tried to flee to open ground, orchard watchers stationed with heavier scorpions could take it down. Margaery and Jon approved the plan, seeing no better alternative. So orchard watchers embarked on the largest coordinated hunt in southwestern living memory. They set up watchtowers around known marshes, posted men at every suspected entry to the caverns, used trained dogs to track the beast's scent. Each day they advanced, hoping to corner it. The hatchling responded with cunning, striking isolated livestock or orchard watchers, then vanishing. Reports came in of watchers wounded by flame or claws. As the weeks slipped on, the Orchard Vow recognized this was no mindless beast. It displayed survival instincts, perhaps an inherited intelligence. But orchard watchers refused to let fear paralyze them. Meanwhile, King's Landing braced for the possibility that the southwestern region might see full-scale destruction if the hatchling matured. Margaery, cradling her twin daughters, felt a shiver of dread. She recalled the adult dragon's carnage. If a second grew to that size or larger, the Orchard Vow could be forced into another pitched battle. She prayed the Watcher's net and trap method would succeed. At last, near the end of a lengthy campaign, Orchard Watchers received a breakthrough. A small patrol discovered the hatchling's lair in a newly revealed section of the caverns, accessible through a collapsed portion. They spotted fresh scorch marks, signs of nesting. The beast was out hunting at the time. Commander Giles moved swiftly, positioning watchers to block each possible approach. They rigged net traps overhead, crossbow stations at vantage points. When the hatchling returned at dusk, carrying the charred carcass of a deer, watchers sprang into action. Net throwers fired first, tangling the hatchling's wings and neck. The creature screeched, spewing small jets of flame, but orchard watchers behind shields advanced. Some nets caught fire, the hatchling thrashing free from one side. Still, watchers persevered, launching additional nets. Crossbow bolts struck its scaled hide. Smaller scorpion arms shot barbed bolts that penetrated deeper. The beast, not yet fully grown, lacked the adult's armor. It hissed in pain, half-bound by nets. Orchard watchers converged, carefully avoiding flame blasts. A final net pinned its head, and orchard watchers hurried to secure the lines. In that tense swirl, Commander Giles shouted for watchers to maintain distance. The hatchling flailed, snapping. Eventually, it collapsed under the combined weight of multiple nets and crossbow bolts. The watchers then debated, kill it on the spot or attempt captivity. Giles recalled Orchard Vow discussions about whether any living dragon might be studied or relocated. But their mission was clear. Orchard watchers couldn't risk letting monarchy loyalists exploit a live dragon. The vow had no facility for safely containing such a beast. Reluctantly, Giles ordered lethal force. The watchers thrust spears into vital points. With a final shrill cry, the hatchling died, burning eyes going dark. They sagged in relief. Another threat averted, though orchard watchers disliked killing such a rare creature. Yet Orchard Vow discipline demanded no exceptions for threats that could decimate farmland. They burned the hatchling's corpse in a remote area, ensuring no portion fell into unscrupulous hands. Then, exhausted, orchard watchers returned to King's Landing with a grim sense of closure. The southwestern region was finally free of draconic menace. News reached Margaery and Jon. She held their daughters in her arms when the messenger arrived. The Orchard Vow had succeeded without needing a second pitched battle. Only a handful of watchers were injured this time. Jon and Margaery breathed in collective relief, though a faint sadness lingered at the idea of slaying a young creature. Still, orchard watchers existed to protect the living from tyranny or monstrous harm. They had done their duty. In the months after southwestern farmland fully recovered, no new sightings emerged, no roars from hidden caverns. The Orchard Vow double-checked the old labyrinth, sealing any suspect passage. The local population resumed normal life, hailing orchard watchers as heroes once more. No monarchy or dragon overshadowed them. The Orchard Vow, battered but unbroken, remained the realm's backbone. Jon and Margaery found renewed calm in King's Landing, raising Lyanna and Leora amid orchard watchers who adored the little ones. As the twins entered toddlerhood, the Orchard Vow continued in quiet confidence. Tarly's successors in the Orchard Watch recalled monarchy attempts, southwestern fiascos, 2 dragons, and overcame them all. Some watchers joked that the vow had bested both kings and beasts. What's left to threaten us? The sea rising, perhaps. They laughed, yet orchard watchers never fully lost their vigilance. Margaery, observing the blossoming Orchard Confederation, believed wholeheartedly that no matter the threat, monarchic or monstrous, the vow would stand. Eventually, as the twins turned 3, Margaery and Jon decided it might be time to step back from daily orchard governance, letting the next generation lead. They traveled to Highgarden with their daughters, hoping to give the girls a quieter upbringing away from the capital's swirl. The Orchard Vow had proven it could govern without them. The southwestern fiasco was over, no monarchy threatened. They deserved a measure of peace. Margaery walked among Highgarden's orchard rows, Lyanna and Leora toddling beside her, bright-eyed at the fruit trees. She pointed out blossoms, recalling how once she and Jon had sworn to keep these lands safe from tyranny. They had done so and more. Jon joined them, carrying a small wicker basket to gather apples. He watched the twins squeal in delight whenever they spotted a bright red fruit. Margaery turned to him, smiling, the sun catching the softness in her features. He saw in her eyes every battle they had survived. We built the Orchard Vow to last, she said softly. So these two never faced the horrors we did. Now the vow belongs to everyone who defends it, not just us. He nodded, kneeling to help Leora pick up a fallen apple. Yes, and if any new threat arises, Orchard Watchers will respond. We gave them that discipline, that code. We can rest in that knowledge. Let us enjoy these orchard fields. Watch our daughters grow. She leaned against him, letting the orchard's warmth envelop them. Lyanna tugged Margaery's hand, eager to show her a ladybug crawling on a leaf. Leora giggled, toddling over to Jon. The orchard vow's legacy had borne more fruit than a single orca. RD. It had remade a realm, destroyed monarchy's last strongholds, slain dragons that defied the Confederation's peace. This orchard brimmed with proof that life continued, unbowed by past terrors. So they lingered, months turning to years, each day free from monarchy or monstrous flame. And in that hush, Orchard Watchers across the land maintained watch, ensuring no tyranny rose. Freed from old illusions, the realm thrived as a patchwork confederation. The dais in King's Landing's old throne room remained dominated by orchard banners, the Iron Throne ignored under dust and cloth. People occasionally sneaked in to gawk at the twisted swords, but Orchard Watchers politely ushered them out. If children asked why such a seat existed, Orchard Watchers explained it was a relic of a cruel era, now overshadowed by orchard discipline. Margaery, guiding Lyanna and Leora's education, sometimes told them bedtime tales of how monarchy once threatened everything. She recounted dethroning Joffrey, forging Orchard Watchers, slaying a dragon's rampage. The twins listened, wide-eyed, only half-believing dragons were real. They would drift to sleep hearing how Orchard Watchers overcame each new foe, forging calm. Jon would stand in the doorway, a gentle smile on his lips, proud that their children learned orchard vow ideals from the cradle. One evening, well after the twins' bedtime, Margaery and Jon walked the orchard alone, memory tugging at them. The orchard was quiet, only crickets chirping. Stars glittered overhead. She took his arm, voice hushed. We did it, didn't we? So many nightmares, each one bested, from monarchy to dragons. We might finally rest. He kissed her temple. We might. The vow stands, the realm flourishes, and we have a family. Let Orchard Watchers handle the next century. We gave them enough examples. She felt tears prick. Yes, our orchard vow belongs to all now. They found a bench beneath a centuries-old apple tree. In that moment, the entire saga of dethroning Joffrey, forging Orchard Watchers, defeating southwestern rebellions and dragons, converged into one simple truth. They had built a world where their daughters could run free among orchard blossoms, unafraid of crowns or flames. Margaery leaned her head on Jon's shoulder, letting the orchard breeze caress them. No more monarchy, no more monstrous foes. Just the gentle rustle of leaves, echoing the vow they had kept alive through every storm. And so the orchard vow endured, unbroken and ready for any unforeseen threat that might one day emerge. But for now, in that orchard hush, Margaery and Jon, along with their twin daughters, found the peace they once believed impossible. The orchard's fragrance carrying all the promise of tomorrow without fear.